Hey guys, and welcome back to the Windsor Time channel. We are fresh off the heels of Watches and Wonders. Welcome back. You are somewhat well rested, fighting through a little bit of a travel cold, but the champagne,
little nasally.
Champagne and espresso is, well, you have espresso right there,
the
constant.
lived off of espresso for 6 days.
Yeah,
you know.
One of the photographers I follow, shout out to Zach Pena, he was there covering it for one of the magazines, and he documented he had, I think it was like 10 or 12 espressos in a day.
Every time you sit down in a different booth or different brand, they're like, oh, would you like an espresso? Would you like sparkling water? Which is very nice. Like, I'm not complaining about that, but at a certain point, you just have to say no.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're going to be strung out.
Absolutely, I can imagine. So like I said, you're back from Watches and Wonders. You've seen a lot of things. Let's dive into first. So as an enthusiast, we sit at home and we're just constantly refreshing our phones, looking at all these different things. And you're an enthusiast as well. So you're there also, for the love of the game, if you will, or whatever. But like, you're also there for work. Yeah. So walk us through, you're getting there. You already have like a set schedule, you have appointments with these people, and you're placing your orders for the year. How does that work?
Yeah, every brand's a little different. So, I mean, our day over there is generally pretty long. It is fun, it is work, but it's definitely different than being at one of our stores, or it diversifies our life a little bit. But I mean, I'll get up at 6:30 probably, try to run, eat at the hotel, and basically from about 8:30 or 9, maybe 8:30 each day, we're on a shuttle over to the show, which is about 20 minutes from our hotel. And then we have appointments pretty much on the hour, the 3 days that we were there this year in terms of actual show days, and we had a day on each end of other appointments. The 3 days we were at the show, I mean, pretty much from about 9 a.m. until 5 or 6, there's something on the hour, or in some cases the half hour.
Sure.
It was a lot of appointments. But yeah, we're there. Some brands function in the sense that you kind of go back behind the curtain, you sit down like this, and you look at things, and you look at things that are current, that are available, that everyone, by the time we're there, they know about them. You also, in some cases, see some things that are embargoed that maybe are coming out in the fall or the summer or even next year. Which is really exciting. So you can't take photos. Cool. You get to see, once again, something future coming. We're not necessarily always placing orders for the whole year. It kind of depends. Some brands work totally on allocation, as we know. Sure. Others we are kind of picking and choosing. Others are just kind of giving you a glimpse. And then as you get back to the U.S. or your respective country, you're going to work with your local rep to sort of place those orders.
Sure.
But the biggest thing is you get hands-on for the most part with almost every watch out there, including the watches from the big boys, and really get to see everything and try everything on, because we all react to pictures and social media comments and all this stuff, but until you really see something on the wrist, you can't quite judge it. So that for us is the biggest part. And then we can bring that feedback back to our clients.
Yeah, that's something I feel like, even just watching from here on social media, by the end of the week, I, on Sunday, just wore my G-Shock all day. Because I was like, I'm watched out. I've seen so many things. I can't imagine if you're there what that gets like eventually.
I was excited this year because sometimes for those appointments you really, 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 really can't wait for, which we love all our brands, but I mean, going into the Rolex appointment obviously is a big one each year, Patek Philippe, etc. We had those on our first day at the show, right off the bat this year. So less of a slow burn to get there. So by the end of the show, I was a little watched out for sure, but it started with a bang, and it was a huge year of releases. And I have said this to our teams and friends and enthusiasts all day long and for the last week, but I feel like Rolex just dropped an absolute hammer this year. The amount of watches that were all just major pieces is unbelievable, and it felt like they packed 5 or 6 years of releases into 1 year. I don't know if you felt that way, but it was wild.
Yeah, I did. I feel like over the last several years we've seen, there's maybe 1 or 2 kind of cool things that come out from them that are variations. But first off, to have a new model, which we're going to get into, a new entire model line released.
And it is awesome. I'm not just putting, that's not me drinking my Rolex Kool-Aid. Really, but we'll get
That's
to that.
Awesome. Yeah. And then the first with the Serichrome dial. So on the white gold GMT, lefty. That's really cool. So I feel like that's something people haven't picked up on as much. That's like a first that they've ever done.
I think most people are just paying attention to the fact that it's a white gold version of the left-hand GMT, but that they're anniversarying the GMT with that ceramic dial,
Absolutely.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So we'll get into Rolex in a second. Before we do, what do you have on the wrist today?
I am wearing today my Patek Philippe 5170G with pulsometric scale.
So good.
Which is a manually wound chronograph, if I can speak, and just awesome watch. I think it wears very casually for what it is.
It does.
When it first launched, I would say it was really perceived as kind of a dress watch, but I think it's really grown and come into its own over the last decade or 12 years or so.
I like that really dark kind of navy strap on it as well. Is that
it's
navy.
It looks black,
almost black.
It's just like inky blue.
No, it's absolutely
I love
incredible.
it. How about yourself?
So another brand that we'll talk about today, I have my Panerai Luminor Marina on, 44 millimeter. I'm wearing a bit more of a kind of Italian-y outfit today, I thought it would be fun, to have a big Italian watch on. So
I love it.
So we actually have 3 watches here that were released this year. One of the most interesting, I think, from Tudor is this one. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so we're privileged Tudor, so kind of a fun point, but some brands, you have Watches and Wonders, and then boom, it takes, 3 months, 4 months for their first piece to land in store. So you have a little bit of that fall off of maybe the excitement and that type of thing.
Sure.
Tudor, basically, these were in the air while we're over at Watches and Wonders, so we actually have some of the new releases here, which is super exciting. So we have, in this case, what I think is probably one of the more exciting pieces of their launch this year, with the Black Bay 58 Burgundy. So you have the burgundy bezel and dial, which is just really nice color pop on the 5-link bracelet, which is really cool. And I think they have a 3-link option as well. So classic 58 case, and that everyone loves, tried and true. Really maybe not so much the burgundy, but I think it's just the perfect first watch for someone, and the burgundy is just a nice way to differentiate it, but very exciting piece here. This one is actually already sold, so gentleman actually was nice enough to let us shoot it for today, and he's getting it tomorrow, so that's really exciting. But beautiful watch. It was really exciting to see over there, and it's amazing to see that Tudor has already gotten watches into stores, so super cool.
That's something cool. I mean, I think a lot of brands could learn from that. Having the stuff pretty much immediately ready, I think, is just exciting for the enthusiast, right? You see the thing, and then the next week you can have it.
As a merchant, it makes a big difference, because I can tell you, we formulate our interest lists and things like that. I hate to use the word list, but our group of interested parties during these shows, or when things are announced, and when 6 months passes before the item actually lands, those interests shift greatly, and that's not always conveyed to us, or the timing's not always conveyed correctly to the client of delivery. So having that bird in hand opportunity right off the bat for people, while they're most excited, at least to come see the item and try on, I think makes a big difference. So they do a great job of that, and a lot of other brands have started doing that as well. It's not just wait and see all the time.
So awesome 58. We also have these guys. We have the new
brothers.
68. We have a blue dial, and then kind of a silverish gray one. This, to me, harkens back to what Tudor was known for originally, or not originally, the second time in 2012, 2013, where you have that just larger Black Bay. I think it's really great. Is this a 43?
43.
Okay, 43. It looks really, really good.
I think they're awesome. I think everything Tudor did this year, I don't know, Pelagos Ultra maybe is like a in-your-face, more supreme piece, but everything, once again, from the merchant standpoint, they did an awesome, just commercially viable set of releases.
They did.
And I think they might have gotten a bit of the memo that a lot of their watches have leaned very small in the last couple of years, and that has been on trend. And also, I mean, enthusiasts love a smaller watch, but I think they didn't really have the perfect combination for maybe a bigger wrist, or someone who likes a bigger, sportier diver, and they've definitely answered this year in a lot of ways.
This, to me, is now their version of the Breitling Super Ocean 2, that little bit kind of larger, sort of like the heritage model of that, that kind of variant. But these are incredible, really cool. Another one you just mentioned that is passed through the shop, the Pelagos Ultra. You are under $6,000 for a watch that has 1,000 meters of water resistance. I mean, talk about that. I mean, that's just
It's super
incredible
cool.
now.
It's super cool. It's wider than the other Pelagos models, but it's really not much taller. I don't have the exact specs in my head, but I mean, we just have one here.
Sure.
It's awesome. My favorite detail about it is not at all technical. It is literally that the word Pelagos is in this nice light blue. I think it's just a nice little touch on
fun.
It's a very robust and like masculine and gray model that has this little touch of color that just makes a big difference. And I think it's just a playful little guy in that regard.
Absolutely. Another great one, Tudor Pro Opaline white dial.
Yeah.
Super cool watch. Obviously pays a bit of homage and kind of a nod to the bigger cousin, brother Explorer 2 that they've made in a white dial for a while. So I think that was sort of a no-brainer to come out.
It just goes to show you too, like, all you have to do is change a dial color and it creates some buzz, and it's amazing how we see that time after time again in this industry or in any industry, car industry, whatever. I mean, color can change perception. And think about the Patek Philippe 5524G Calatrava Pilot, that came out this year. They discontinued the blue, which was the original launch piece for 5524G, and they came out with this kind of cream, almost luminescent cream dial, and it's just an entirely different looking watch.
Yeah.
Super exciting, but the same watch at the end of the day.
Yeah. What else? So I feel like we've covered Tudor pretty well. From Patek, since we're kind of on that, what else really caught your attention?
We can go in a lot of different directions. I think the new 6159G, which is the smoked crystal
so good
dial, retrograde perpetual calendar with hobnail bezel on the front and hobnail on the back of the case, which is a detail a lot of people haven't noticed, is just such a cool watch that is like quintessentially modern Patek in that it is dressy, but it is also, I mean, you can wear it in a polo or a t-shirt. It is the perfect casual perpetual calendar that can still wear with a tux, and it's just totally a little bit off the wall for them, even though it references reference 5316 minute repeater. But I think that was just, no one saw that coming. Patek's 6196P, which is the rose opaline / salmon dial.
I was gonna say the salmon dial.
Calatrava, and
killer.
That's probably the most just wide-reaching, pleasing watch they released this year. I would say that gives all the enthusiasts a sigh of relief that there's something beautiful and classic and not too busy out there, but also just a breath of fresh air at the same time. And it also goes to show that's just the beginning of 6196. There's probably, assuming there will probably be a rose, a white gold, and a yellow perhaps in that model, which Calatrava has kind of needed that classic piece back in the line.
Is that one, when you're talking about Patek and specifically platinum Patek, I think that's the most approachable entry to a platinum piece. I think that was 49 or 59, somewhere in there, to get into a platinum.
I don't recall the
from them.
price point off the top of my head, but I would think so. I don't think there's another non-complicated platinum piece that's. It's also manually wound, so that a little less complicated keeps the price point down. If you will,
relatively speaking, down.
Depending on your perspective. But that was a killer piece. I think the 5370R split seconds chronograph, which once again, it's a different metal and a different dial combination for the same watch that's been out for about a decade or maybe a little more now.
Sure.
But just awesome, and it's a both vintage feeling with the two-tone enamel dial. It's kind of like a brown and tan dial. Fired enamel, but also just sporty in its own way. I mean, it's a cool, and it's a color palette you just don't really see as much. So I love that.
Patek, the last several years, just hasn't really missed.
Yeah,
I mean, you can say kind of Cubitus, like, sort of, but even the introduction of the Cubitus in 40 millimeters.
Cubitus in 40 millimeters.
That was hinted at for some time, and it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Once again, every single one out there is going to sell. There's going to be a lot of people looking for them. I thought it was super cool. It was, I don't want to say predictable, but we knew some other Cubitus were coming. I can't wait to see Cubitus with some complication or gemset Cubitus, something like that. So that's going to be pretty cool. But it was a great size. I think kind of like the 45 wore kind of like more like a 43, the original launch Cubitus. This 40, to me, it felt more like 38 or 39. So, I mean, it wears very well. It's very unisex. They're calling it medium size, so I don't know if that means there's a small size coming still, et cetera. So we'll see. Definitely, but We don't know.
Yeah.
The other one, I think we can go down the Patek rabbit hole all day. The one that probably didn't get enough attention that is super, super cool is the 5328, which is the kind of reintroduction of the 8-day manually wound power reserve in a whole new sort of fun granular dial, and in round, which has normally been rectangular or almost tonneau shaped in the past. So it's fun to see that movement back in the collection, which is cool.
Definitely. Yeah. Patek.
So
it could be a whole episode.
Whole episode for sure.
JLC.
I would say any directions you want to go before we talked about Rolex.
Yeah, a couple more. We'll save that one for the end. No, JLC with the Reverso World Time. How was that?
Super cool. I thought all the Reversos this year, per usual, are super cool. I loved that one. I love the fact that they threw the minute repeater out there. They really, I didn't think they'd go that heavy with more Reverso, but they really did.
Was it pink gold or red gold, the one on the bracelet?
Off the top of my head, I don't recall what they
we'll put it
called
up. But coppery gold.
The
beautiful.
I admittedly don't remember if they call it red gold or rose,
they kind of bounce back and forth.
But I did not get to try it on. They didn't have a sit down. They really have more of a walkthrough, so everything's mounted up in this case. But we did get to flip it. But that bracelet looks beautiful. The build of the watch looks perfect. It's, once again, just a small change on something that makes a big difference. And we're all seeing, with Patek coming out with the ellipse on the bracelet last year, Rolex 1908 on the bracelet this year.
Another killer one.
This Reverso on the we're seeing this kind of traditional leaning into Milanese style bracelet just coming back into fashion, and
I think it's great.
People are trying to just be different and get away from the sports world a little bit, which is super refreshing.
It is. Moving into the sports world, Panerai. What I have on my wrist.
I know you want to talk about Panerai.
How cool. So when you think about the product cycle of like an Apple, a Porsche, even Rolex, it's small changes that just over time make the wearability 5 to 10% better each time. Panerai, they made a slimmer, more water-resistant version of this watch. So
with a see-through case back.
Which is incredible. So this is the 1313. I picked this up, what was it, last year before. 100 meters of water resistance, solid case back. Great, still love it. For them to come out with a see-through case back that's now 500 meters of water resistance as opposed to 100. I go in the pool with this. I'm never going to need 500, but just to know that it can in a slimmer case, I think is so cool. And I think they're listening to the consumer and what they want.
They've also integrated, if I'm not mistaken, more quick change straps.
Yeah, the push thing.
On these models, whereas they were really only doing that on their, I think, Duets and things like that before, or almost more like lifestyle pieces versus their core pieces. So
but the nice thing was you can still undo the spring bar for whatever their quick system is. Straps,
exactly.
What I think is cool.
But I think they did a great job. I think anytime Panerai makes changes, the Paneristi community, the Panerai community is always, like any other deep dive community, they're always up in arms about things, but I feel like they're going to embrace these changes pretty well. They really made a nice platform for
I feel like those guys like the 49 millimeter, 17 millimeter thick, whatever cases.
They also did a model, we saw a few models with that kind of smoky, not quite skeletonized look, but that like half skeletonized smoky look. And
I did notice that.
I'm blanking on the reference right now, but they did a nice, that's a big release for them this year as well, which is a pretty hot watch. So
absolutely.
We're
jump into it.
Here. Land Dweller.
Still not convinced on the dial.
I love it.
I really thought the time for at least releasing integrated sports watches was kind of coming a little bit to an end. Like you said, we're seeing more dress watches. IWC let's not, real quick. IWC Ingenieur, all black, so cool.
Pretty sweet.
Green dial Ingenieur, also really cool. Smaller Ingenieur, really, really cool. How are those?
Quite small. I thought they're all great. The perpetual calendar was interesting. Better on the wrist than I expected. That was the first one I was like, I don't know. Like, just speaking honestly, I don't know about this. felt like it rounded up a little bit, but it wears
Yeah.
really well, and that movement's incredible. Super excited about that one.
Nice.
The smaller size, I think it's 35. They say is unisex. I mean, it feels pretty small.
It's small.
I consider that, whoever wants to wear it, obviously, but it felt smaller than I was hoping it does, whereas like a few of those other 36 to 37 millimeter pieces really do wear pretty well. But overall, all the Ingenieurs were awesome. The green dial piece is super cool in that it was inspired by Brad Pitt's vintage piece.
Yep.
That I guess
Yeah,
he had a green dial installed on specifically because he wanted a green dial on his original Ingenieur, which is a pretty cool story.
That's cool.
And then I guess they took inspiration from that and made this limited edition piece, which was pretty special. And obviously the black ceramic's super cool. I mean, that's a home run. It's pretty cool. So
That's
love
one. If and when they were to introduce, because there's not a rubber strap, I think that goes on it now.
Not sure.
Sure. But if there was, that would
one
be
makes
so
sense.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Land Dweller.
Back to Land Dweller.
Rolex. Even the release from a marketing perspective was really interesting because Rolex, to my knowledge at least, has not done a leak like that before. And I'm not even talking about just like the video and stuff that came out, but having Roger Federer spotted the day before or whatever a couple swipes deep on a carousel image on his Instagram.
Yeah.
First off, the most Rolex thing, because he was skiing and then eating fondue or something with it, so that's kind of cool. But what do you think? Is this an extension of the Datejust line and kind of making it a more modern?
I don't feel that way.
thing?
I feel
No?
like as much as it has a fluted bezel and everything. I mean, to me, it's very much its own vertical, like 1,000,000,000%. In fact, obviously the flat Jubilee feels like a Jubilee bracelet, but on the wrist, this watch feels totally different. I've had trouble sort of describing this to people, but I really feel like it gave me a glimpse into what 5 or 10 years from now other Rolex models will kind of feel like in terms of fit and finish, because I felt that the build quality of it, that's not to say every other Rolex currently is not spectacular.
Sure.
But this watch felt so dialed in, every angle so perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a completely perfect thing, but it is next level for them, and you can tell it kind of gives you a glimpse into their future. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Not just look-wise, but technology-wise as well.
Well, and it's moving away from sort of the tool watch. It's still a tool in many regards, but
It's
it's
a lifestyle
not
tool
a
watch. I mean,
hammer like a
for sure.
Submariner is.
I think it's very much them showing the world that they know they are making a lifestyle, I mean, literally for land, semi-urban watch.
Sure.
I mean, that's what it is, and it doesn't mean it can't perform, but it's awesome. It's thin. I think the sizes are perfect. The dial, polarizing with the sort of honeycomb look. I personally really like it. I think it sets it apart. I imagine they won't do that indefinitely, but I think it's a nice way to sort of launch the piece.
Absolutely.
The 6 and 9, of course, also polarizing.
Yep.
To me, I think it sort of breaks the dial up nicely, but to each their own. And you can see, obviously, I think it's the solid gold pieces, in some cases with diamond markers, don't have those, so you can get a sense of how that looks. I think it's going to be awesome. In fact, it is awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited to have them in the store.
Sure.
And I'm excited to see them on people's wrists. I mean, I don't know, it's refreshing, and it's both like big changes and small changes from the crown.
Absolutely. Well, and moving on, 1908 on bracelet.
Same thing. It's the
If
same
I
watch
could-
with a new bracelet, but it's awesome.
Oh, if you came to me right now and said you could have one new release from Rolex, what do you want? I mean, money no object. Like that would be it. I mean, that is incredible.
Super cool.
Having a flush bracelet, having
straight.
that curved, straight kind of thing.
Semi-straight, I guess.
Semi-straight. That is such a cool vintage-inspired throwback.
Yeah.
And then that's a watch too that's going to look awesome on the strap at some point if you wanted to throw it on that as well.
Well, and that's what's nice in a somewhat not always Rolex way. You can buy that bracelet separately, apparently. So if someone had the strap version already, they can, to my knowledge, buy that bracelet as well.
That'll be very cool.
Yeah.
That will be, like you said, we're sort of seeing what the future of Rolex is going to be. Not working for an AD, I will say my hot take is I think Rolex wants to move far more upmarket.
Yeah.
I think they want to compete with the Pateks, the APs, the Vacherons, and I think the Land Dweller, the 1908. Those are foundational pieces that in 10 or 20 years we'll see iterations where we go, oh, there's now a Land Dweller chronograph that competes directly with an overseas, right? If you think about it, they've been iterating off of pieces that were released in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
The Submariner's been out for forever. The Datejust, the Day-Date, all these things have been around, and they've improved on them.
Yeah.
From materials perspective, from a movement perspective. They're kind of been stuck in what that mold is.
Yeah.
You're looking at, they're making a new manufacturing facility, right? They're ramping up production for that, I would say.
Well, it's funny too, they don't do anything quickly. I mean, they very strategically over long periods of time in very Swiss fashion make small changes that make big waves,
Sure.
And I don't think Land Dweller came about overnight. I also don't think, there's a lot of hearsay about it having a Genta-esque case or a Tissot-esque case, but those people have a perspective of probably the last 5 or 6 years of the watch industry and not the last 50 years. The people that are saying that, because it is very Rolex. It has a lot of Rolex DNA, including oyster quartz and a lot of other things in it. So I think it's pretty cool. And the other biggest thing about it is it could be priced way higher than it is. I think they're smart to price it under stainless Sky Dweller. Let's talk about just the launch piece, the stainless and white gold piece.
14.9, I want to say.
14.9 in the 40 millimeter.
Yeah.
Priced above Datejust, pretty well above Datejust, 3,000 or 4,000, but it's under Sky Dweller, which makes complete sense.
It does.
But compared to other pieces that are kind of in its world, if you will, it's way undervalued.
Oh, yeah.
I think they just doing the watch, not doing the watch community a favor per se, but they're not trying to just make it a overpriced thing. They're really trying to make it a real reasonable goal attainable goal for a lot of people.
Well,
which is a very Rolex thing.
What's the difference between Rolex and a Richemont owned brand? There's
a lot.
There's a lot. But one of the things, not the main thing, just one of the things in general being they don't have to report to shareholders. They're a privately held charitable foundation, right?
Well, they're doing things truly with a multi-generational and decades-long view versus maybe a 1 to 2 year view, which not every company is doing.
And a lot of them don't have the luxury to do, but it's really cool.
Yeah. And then there's 1 million other cool
to
talk about.
Oyster Perpetual. Near and dear to my heart.
Completely revamped. Every dial went away. The whole watch changed, even though it came back. But regardless of the color, case has been tightened up a little bit, and the crown was enlarged, which I feel like made a big difference in the look and feel of the watch.
Sure.
Super cool. The predecessor model was awesome too. So just great, but fun new colors. What did you think of the colors?
So much fun.
Yeah.
The sage green. I already own a green. You own a green. But if I didn't have that green, such a cool green. I think it is a cool iteration where it isn't just doing new, different, loud colors. It's a very cool, under-the-radar move now that you've sort of had those primary red, yellow, blue, greens. Now it's an iteration where we're getting to see something really cool.
And it's funny, you would think you see them, you think they're out there, but they're strangely not really out there. Like that tan, is it beige tan? I forget what they're calling it, I should know. But that's really not out there, even though, it's its own little palette, and it's kind of like a sleeper in that way. It's pretty cool. So
it's cool.
I'm excited for those. And there's the world of GMTs. GMTs, Daytonas, and Sky Dweller.
Yeah.
All some heavy hitters this year. Really, like I said, it felt like they packed quite a few years in here.
Yeah.
The big defining thing for me was Meteorite Daytonas came back literally almost as like a side item this year, which in most years that would be like the front-running hero piece of the year. So that's how big a year this was.
Incredible rose gold and yellow gold stone dial GMTs, which is so cool.
Tiger iron dials, which recommend everyone see in person at some point, whether you own it or whether you just get to see it at a store or a official Rolex jeweler near you. So unique, so different. I don't think anyone saw that coming for GMT, in precious metals, and really, really cool. Almost like this almost describe it as like a lava flow meets tiger eye dial. I mean, just very, very interesting, very subdued yet different. You know, just really, really cool color palette.
Yeah. Sky Dweller as well.
Sky Dweller, I mean, solid yellow gold with, you know, bright green dials, just really cool.
Incredible.
And very exciting watch. Obviously gonna be a very, you know, sought after watch, but I think it's just beautiful on the wrist.
Yeah, such a heavy hitter. I think, you know, the Sky Dweller in general is not, no Rolex is underrated, right? But to me, when you talk about, it's an annual calendar, correct?
Yep.
An annual calendar sports watch from a brand like Rolex, I still don't think it gets the amount of love. It's a thicker watch, you know, it wears a bit taller, but
there's more versions of it out there than people realize too. But I mean, it gets plenty of love. I don't think it gets enough appreciation for how complicated it is.
Yeah.
I mean, most people, I know people who have owned the watch for years in some cases and do not realize that it's an annual calendar, that it has this month function, that it has this. I mean, it's really an incredible piece of timekeeping machinery.
Yeah.
You know?
And then the last one, the reintroduction of the John Mayer 2.0.
Yeah.
So they lost the small red kind of circles on the subdials.
Yeah.
How was that?
I think it's awesome. I still sort of lean into, like, I think they're two different animals, you know, same watch, two different animals. You know, I tend to like the predecessor if you were considering them the same watch, but the new one's super cool too, and totally different look, you know.
Yeah.
Someone there said it feels more of like a Masters or almost golf version of a Daytona. Like it has this color palette that leans into golf. I don't know if I necessarily see that, but that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I like the predecessor personally.
Yeah, if I had the choice of both
Both are sweet.
if I had that luxury, you know, that would be quite cool. But yeah, overall, I think really just an incredible year of releases from them.
I agree.
And I'm excited to see, like you kind of mentioned, not all the pieces were shown last week, right?
Well,
There's
that's
stuff.
exactly right.
Tudor has stuff coming out that they've confirmed on their Instagram.
Yep. They had it literally at the Tudor booth. Booth is it's a like, big, you know, build out. They had an actual countdown timer for the next piece. I mean, they showed another piece is going to be released that's not even at this show, you know. So it's cool to see that.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was an exciting year.
Yeah, I think it was a great year. If there was one that we didn't cover, you know, as stuff starts to trickle in, we'll try to do videos on them, but drop ideas below if you would like to see a review on any specific piece that was released this year, and we'll see what we can do. But as always, thank you guys for watching so much, and we'll see you next time.